What's up, fam? Welcome back to another chilling chapter. Before we dive into today's twisted mystery, the ink beneath her fingernails. A Father Brown mystery hit me up. What made you smile today, and where in the world are you listening from? I'm featuring your stories in the next drop, so don't be shy. Now grab your tea, dim the lights, and get ready. Because nothing whispers in the fog, is ever what it seems. Chapter 1. The Guest Who Never Took Tea. Rain poured relentlessly over the ancient stones of Castle Thorn, a gloomy backdrop that seemed almost to reflect the unease within its cavernous walls. The lavish drawing room, adorned with oil paintings of stoic ancestors and rich tapestries depicting long-forgotten battles, felt more like a mausoleum than the lively gathering it had promised to be. Glancing out the window, Father Brown noticed how the droplets raced each other down the glass, mirroring the frantic pulses of the hearts within. It was just past 4 o'clock when Lady Margaret, the hostess, advised her guests to prepare for tea, her voice a soothing balm amid the lingering storm. Yet, no sooner had she left the room than an unsettling hush fell over the gathering. Conversations flickered like the dying embers of a fire, and uneasy smiles masked the tension brewing beneath. "Did you hear about Edwin? They've taken him to task for the failed bid last week," whispered Agnes, a local spinster whose incessant gossip filled the quiet corners of the village. Her eyes darted nervously toward the door, as if fearing that their conversation could invite disaster. Across the room, Simon, a young artist, with his collar turned up against the damp chill, leaned closer. "I would hardly compare Edwin's finances to the spectre now haunting Castle Thorn. The storm is nothing compared to the anxiety of our hostess." Suddenly, a muffled thud echoed from the direction of Lady Margaret's study, a sound that shattered the uneasy peace like glass upon stone. Alarmed, Father Brown exchanged a glance with Simon, and without waiting for permission, stepped toward the imposing oak door that marked the entry to the study. The door creaked ominously as he pushed it open. The sight that met his eyes was a vision of shocking contrast to the genteel atmosphere of the afternoon. Lady Margaret lay sprawled across her polished mahogany desk, a pool of crimson marring the wood beneath her. The room was locked from within, the key irrevocably turned, and on a nearby chair, a china teacup lay broken, shards glistening like teeth amid the chaos. She was just preparing tea," a trembling voice stuttered from behind. It was Clara, a freckled girl of 16, who had been hovering timidly at the threshold. Father Brown noticed the way her hands clenched her apron, the worry twisting her youthful voice. I was waiting to help her. I didn't hear anything, I swear." Yet, in the silence that followed, Father Brown could almost hear the secrets whispering in Clara's wide, frightened eyes. "Did she have any visitors, Clara? Anyone unusual or unexpected?" he probed, his deep voice steady, even amid the horror surrounding them. With a hesitant breath, she glanced toward the door, her gaze darting nervously before responding. There was a stranger, a man I don't know. He arrived not long before it happened." "Interesting," Father Brown mused, noting her apprehension. His brow furrowed in thought while the clock ticked ominously in the background, each chime a reminder of the life snuffed out within these walls. In the gathering room, confusion spiraled as whispers erupted into anxious speech, each guest attempting to discern the unfolding tragedy. However, one figure stood out: Lawrence, Lady Margaret's brother, a roguish man with a penchant for mischief. His eyes were wide with an absurd mixture of disbelief and panic. "It can't be, it can't be," he erupted, hands flying in gesticulation. "I received her letter just this morning. She was in good health." Father Brown observed him closely, taking note of the jagged tone in Lawrence's voice that betrayed more than mere grief. A flicker of guilt, or perhaps something darker. As the vicar leaned against the wooden door frame, he questioned the man further. "What was it that she wrote, Lawrence?" "Good news, you say?" Lawrence stammered, lips parted, as if forcing words against an obstruction. "Something about the estate. It's a matter of great importance. I wanted to speak with her about it." "It could easily be worth money," chimed in Agnes, her facetious tone laced with malice. "Perhaps you wish to secure your inheritance sooner rather than later." The tension in the room surged, a palpable force causing eyes to dart nervously among the assembled guests. Each spoke in hushed tones, fearful of implicating themselves in a plot darker than the clouds hanging ominously outside. Father Brown keenly grasped that beneath the polite facades lay a tapestry of envy, greed, and deep-seated rivalries that could ignite at any moment. It was in this moment of chaos that Simon the artist caught Father Brown's gaze. "You seem composed, Father," he noted, his voice low. "Do you see something we don't?" "Perhaps, but what I see demands clarity. What were Lady Margaret's intentions for this gathering? Discussion or more? Secrets nestle within closed doors." He turned back to Lawrence, who glared with unabashed outrage. "One could inquire, did Lady Margaret invite you here solely for a casual visit, or were there more pressing matters on her mind?" Suddenly, the fresh roar of thunder clawed at the air, and in the clamour, Clara's voice rang out once more. She took tea with the man. Just before, her breath caught, silently admonishing her own disclosure. Father Brown's gaze locked onto hers, pieces of a puzzle clicking into place. A shared cup of tea, a ritual. It appears she was not as alone as she seemed when the end came. "But who was he?" Simon pressed, his eyes ablaze with intrigue. "Do you think she asked him to her study?" "A question best asked to a unique acquaintance," Father Brown replied, already setting his mind to unraveling the intricacies that flowed like dark rivulets beneath their polite decorum. Just then, a frantically paced footstep drew attention. The door swung open to reveal a stricken officer, his expression manifesting a mixture of urgency and dread. "We've detained the stranger, Father. He awaits below. A witness or a suspect?" As Father Brown turned towards Lawrence and the others, he sensed the gathering had shifted from whispers to roiling accusations, with everyone suspecting one another. The rain poured harder outside, tapping a relentless rhythm that seemed to underscore the drama, echoing the tumult within both Castle, Thorn, and its inhabitants. The unsolved mysteries of Lady Margaret's demise loomed over them like the storm clouds overhead, threatening to unleash a deluge. Relationships splayed out in the light of suspicion. Each gaze was a question, each silence a confession, yet unvoiced. As they all began to process the unfolding directions of the investigation, Father Brown straightened, the flicker of determination igniting in his eyes. The next question needed to be asked, one that could unearth the truth hidden amongst the clouds of lies and half-uttered confessions swirling like fog around Castle Thorn. What lay behind the locked study door remained a mystery. Yet now, the promise of revelation hung in the air, tangibly electric. How many of them would be willing to take the risks of unburdening their sordid truths? And with that thought, Father Brown prepared to descend into the very heart of his investigation, knowing that clarity often disguises itself luridly in the storm. Chapter 2. The ink beneath her fingernails. Father Brown stepped back from the lifeless form of Lady Margaret, his stomach churning as rain beat a relentless tattoo against the windows. The dim light of the study, exacerbated by the shadows swirling like dark thoughts, narrowed his focus onto one particularly peculiar detail. Beneath her meticulously manicured fingernails, a small smudge of dark ink lay nestled, a stark contrast against her pallid skin. It was a troubling hint, an unfinished letter that could lead him deeper into the quagmire of Lady Margaret's final moments. He leaned closer, the faint scent of ink mingling with the lingering aroma of rain-soaked wood. "There is more to this than meets the eye," he murmured, half to himself. No one seemed to notice as he scrutinized the ink-stained fingernails. The very hint of correspondence lured him, like a lost child calling from a shadowy corner. Perhaps she had been interrupted mid-thought, or perhaps she had penned something revealing not only about herself, but of the stark relationships woven throughout Castle Thorn. Meanwhile, the others remained in the drawing room, the air thick with muted conversations that seemed to tremble with energy. Father Brown could catch bits of their speculation wafting through the cracked door. They remained in a limbo between disbelief and anxiety, each of them wrestling with the shadow of Lady Margaret's death. "What did she say in that final letter, Father?" Simon's voice broke through the murmur as he emerged shadow-like from the darkened hallway. The artist's wide eyes glinted with a blend of curiosity and apprehension. "A question worth pondering, Simon," Father Brown replied, standing up straight and turning toward the doorway to the study. The urgency in his voice resonated with purpose. "This ink may lead us to know her final thoughts, thoughts that perhaps someone wished to erase." Agnes's voice piped up, its usual sharpness blunted by unease. "Father, it makes little sense. Who would want to hurt Lady Margaret? Surely her brother or her dear friends could not wish her ill." "Ah, therein lies the beauty of motives, dear Agnes," he replied, his eyes twinkling with keen assessment. "One does not need to bear an open grudge to harbor the darkness of envy or greed, and this gathering possesses enough latent tension to fuel even the most innocent of acquaintances into sinister actions." As Father Brown strode back into the study, he caught Clara watching him intently, her lips slightly parted. The girl had shifted from timorous innocence to a strange apparition of horror. "What do you think it means, Father?" she asked, her youthful tone trembling with curiosity and fear. Father Brown regarded her closely, weighing the tremors beneath her skin as he contemplated the possibilities. "I cannot yet say, Clara, but you may yet prove invaluable. Observe all you can, for it is often the young who see what the grown-ups overlook." The study remained a sanctuary of secrets, a heavy mantle draping over them as the storm outside howled, attempting to drown out their unspoken fears. Father Brown began to methodically sift through details, his fingers trailing over the desk's surface to inspect the overturned items, papers strewn about, an empty teacup lingering ominously, and an open writing set that lay abandoned, ink still fresh. As he rifled through the scattered letters, he recognized one, wrinkled and creased, a telltale sign of hurried writing. "Simon, come here," he motioned the artist closer. "What can you make of this?" With hands now steady, Simon reached for the letter cautiously, as if it might bite. As he read, his frown deepened. "It's all but a fragment. It seems She was about to send for someone. Someone urgent. Father. Brown's brow furrowed, a piece of the puzzle flitting dangerously close to clarity. Simon nodded, casting a sidelong glance at Clara. Indeed, it appears that whatever was on her mind was pressing enough to merit an immediate invitation, but it doesn't name anyone specifically. Father Brown considered this carefully. The ink, the sense of urgency, hidden behind the veneer of aristocratic decorum, each feature was a step closer toward unveiling a concealed torment. He recalled Clara's earlier revelation about the stranger, and a new suspicion gripped him. Whoever she invited here had the fortitude to catch her unguarded, and perhaps he knew more than we could surmise at this time. As Father Brown continued his contemplation, the door creaked open, and Lawrence paced in, his face taut and begrimed with anxiety. "Is there any progress? I demand to know what is happening," he burst, his tone not merely irate, but also besieged by desperation. Taking note of the clench in Lawrence's jaw, Father Brown kept his own tone calm. "We've yet to determine how it is you knew your sister, seemingly in good health, to be dead by her own hand." Lawrence's face fell, a mask that told tales of a frazzled mind. "I was away, at the estate just beyond the hill. She was due to discuss a pressing matter that could save her finances. I assured her there was no cause for alarm." There was a hint of something unchained behind his words, an urgency that left Father Brown feeling unsettled. "And yet you returned uninvited. After the crime," Father Brown countered softly, smoke curling from the detective's internal analysis. What could this pressing matter signify if not inheritance, failure, or perhaps an inheritance she sought to bestow upon an acquaintance of importance? That is, if these letters hold the truth of it. Lawrence's expression hardened, his nervously gesticulating hands growing. Still you would dare accuse me of wishing her harm, Father." "I make no accusations. I only seek truth, for Lady Margaret's sake," Father Brown replied, eyes narrowing as he continued his exploration. Suddenly, a knock reverberated through the door, breaking the tension like the crack of thunder. An officer's silhouette appeared, tension threading the air as he announced, "Father, the stranger wishes to speak. His name is Charles Redding." Father Brown's heart accelerated. Could this man be the key to unraveling the threads of the mystery? Perhaps he was the unknown figure who had shared Lady Margaret's last moments. The name danced upon his tongue, giving weight to the unfolding story. "Bring him in," Father Brown commanded, anticipation tinged, with anxiety rippling through him as he prepared to face whatever truths lay ahead. As the door swung open, the figure of Charles Redding slipped through, dripping wet and bearing an expression of stoic wariness. Father Brown felt the electric tension tighten in an instant. An ink-stained woman lay lifeless, and behind him watched the jealous eyes of those eager to shield their secrets with lies. This stranger harbored answers to the ink beneath her fingernails. What secrets lay unspoken? How many veils would he need to lift before the genuine story unraveled before him? In that moment, the rain's relentless drumming morphed to a throbbing crescendo, promising that the ties binding the villagers would soon snap and reveal the darker truths buried deep within the cobwebbed corners of Castle Thorn. And at the heart of it all was a letter, half-finished, and the ink with which it was scribed would not rest until it told its full tale. Each heartbeat pounding against the walls was a reminder that time was escaping. An hourglass filtered through suspicions, desires, and shattered illusions with every grain of sand. Chapter 3. The Sermon Interrupted. In the heart of a tightly knit community, nestled in the rhythm of a widespread Sunday tranquility, Castle Thorne stood ominously, draped in the shroud of recent tragedies. The dark clouds overhead threatened heavy rain, their billowing shapes contrasting starkly against the warmth emanating from the church's stone facade. Inside, the air was infused with the faint scent of fresh incense and polished wood, a facade of calm enveloping the wavering hearts of the congregation. Father Brown stood behind the pulpit, his gaze sweeping over familiar faces, each marked by unspoken grief. He sensed it in the subtle tension that rippled beneath folded hands and clasped rosaries. Father Brown cleared his throat, his mind lingering on Lady Margaret's tragic passing, the shadow of unresolved tensions still clinging to the people he now addressed. As he prepared to deliver a sermon of solace, the heavy wooden doors creaked open, drawing the attention of the congregation. A figure entered, Lawrence, Lady Margaret's brother, his face as pale as the walls of the church, an uneasy air of desperation enveloping him. "Forgive my intrusion," Lawrence gasped, his chest heaving. "But I have news that cannot wait." The whisper of nervous energy pulsed through the church, eyes widening in intrigue and concern. Father Brown stepped down from the pulpit, his heart racing. The storm outside mirrored the storm brewing within. "What is it, Lawrence?" "Last night, while the rain poured down, I found a letter," Lawrence stammered, reaching into his coat. "It was meant for Margaret, a will she wasn't aware of, one that could change everything." The sound of whispers swelled, coloring the air with speculation. Father Brown felt the intensity of the moment amplify, the congregation shifting as Lawrence produced the folded parchment, his hands trembling. "May I?" Father Brown inquired, extending his hand for the letter, which Lawrence relinquished without hesitation. The priest unfolded it with a delicate precision, the ink dark and hurried, each letter a forceful testament of intent. "It appears to be from her solicitor," he murmured, scanning the elegant cursive, his mind absorbing each fragment of meaning. "To whom it may concern, be advised that Lady Margaret's will has been contested, and I am compelled to reveal its contents forthwith. A revelation is necessary due to ongoing disputes regarding the estate." His voice carried the weight of the implications, and he could feel eyes boring into him, some filled with anxiety, others laden with a hopeful glimmer of opportunity. The congregation erupted into a murmur, the air thickening with rising panic, mingled with intrigue. Father Brown raised a hand, attempting to quell the chaos. How can an unfinished letter, with contested outcomes, affect Lady Margaret if she— His voice faltered momentarily. "If she is dead?" "She had no idea." Lawrence's voice cracked, his emotional wall beginning to crumble. "She was not a woman of contrast, Father. She believed she was securely bound to her home. With this news, it changes her legacy." "Changes indeed," Father Brown reflected, glancing at the name of the solicitor scrawled at the bottom. "But those changes may tether a cord of danger. You realize, Lawrence, this means that someone here may have motives beyond mourning." As the congregation awaited the unfolding narrative, their expressions morphed from sorrow to suspicion, doubt festering among them. Simon, uncharacteristically silent till now, peered over Father Brown's shoulder, his artist's eye picking apart the scene. "Do you think— could it have been forged?" he ventured, pressing the thought into the still air that radiated tension. "Such a thing is possible," Father Brown considered, tapping a finger against his temple, the ink-stained nail of Lady Margaret appearing like a ghost in his memory. But this particular letter, born of urgency, conceived in fear, seems remarkably genuine. As the words hung between them, the heavy church doors swung open again, and a gust of wind rushed in, rattling the hanging lanterns. Father Brown turned just as a tall man entered, sodden from the rain. The murmurs crescendoed again as recognition dawned upon the assembled crowd. "It's Charles Redding," whispered Agnes, a sharp edge of surprise lacing her tone. "What brings him here?" Charles strode to the front, his expression void of fear, a conviction replacing any semblance of guilt. "I've come to speak of Lady Margaret," he stated firmly, brushing the droplets from his coat. "I believe I hold knowledge about her will." The room went silent as all present leaned in, curiosity igniting the atmosphere. Father Brown motioned for him to proceed. She confided in me," Redding began, his tone steady, "about her financial instability. She mentioned plans for a will, a plan that involved her closest allies. But I feared mentioning it until now, to keep her safe." "Safe from what, Mr. Redding?" Father Brown pressed, the urgency of the matter weighing heavily on him. "Safe from those who might seek to gain from her misfortunes," Redding responded, his gaze steady, darting toward the others present, accusation resting behind his calm demeanor. "Those closest to her, those who could lose everything." "I would never wish her harm," Lawrence interjected, panic leaping into his voice. "I loved my sister." "Love often disguises greed, Mr. Lawrence," Father Brown cautioned, locking eyes with him. "While you mourn, secrets may bloom unseen." As Father Brown sensed the ominous undercurrents swirling in their midst, he knew he was standing at the precipice of deeper alliances and deeper deceit. The threat of Lady Margaret's last intentions loomed like the dim shadows casting themselves across the church walls, each flickering lantern a flicker of secrets, yet to be unmasked. "Perhaps, gentlemen," he proposed with quiet authority, "we should determine the veracity of this will and the parties involved. Can you produce it, Lawrence? Can you unearth the truth behind the journey set into motion by this letter?" Before he could respond, a crash of thunder punctuated the moment, startling everyone. All eyes turned toward the windows as rain began to thrash against the panes, an allegorical rampage echoing the turmoil inside. Lawrence took a hesitant step back, and Father Brown could see the layers of fear and suspicion wrapping tighter around every soul present. In that ear-splitting wake of nature's discontent, a clerical storm brewed anew, one where trust eroded rapidly, and as each secret inseparable from the others came to the forefront, Father Brown realized they stood on shaky ground indeed. Until the mysteries of the will and its hidden meanings unspooled, the sanctity of truth would remain elusive. Suddenly, another crack of thunder boomed, rattling the church's timber, and among the cacophony, someone whispered, "The papers may still exist somewhere deep within the manor." The congregation murmured in sudden disarray, fear coiling about their hearts like a serpent, tightening with each revelation. Father Brown's mind raced, contemplating the search and the alliances beset by suspicion. This was only the beginning, and even as the echoes of the storm overhead persisted, he felt the harrowing whispers of secrets drifting dangerously close to the light he strove to cast. What truths would rise with the rain? What alliances would be fractured? The weight of what lay ahead bore down upon him profoundly, and one thought clenched tightly in his mind as the congregation began to disperse with fraying dignity. How far would each participant go to shield their secrets from the realm of revelation, come what may. How many wills would be written in blood before the truth revealed itself? Chapter 4. The Will in the Vicar's Study. The rain fell relentlessly, a torrent of sorrow that mirrored the dark clouds suffocating the sun as Father Brown stepped through the heavy oak door of the vicarage. Inside, the familiar scent of waxed wood and damp stone enveloped him, a stark contrast to the storm raging outside. He took a moment to gather his thoughts, the urgency of the previous meeting still fresh in his mind. The storm promised not only physical, but also metaphorical upheaval, and he sensed that the hourglass was dangerously low on sand. Father Brown made his way to the study, a room heavy with the weight of prayers and secrets. Flickering candlelight danced on the walls, casting elongated shadows that seemed to whisper of the mysteries enveloping Castle Thorn. He glanced at the old desk, pockmarked and ink-stained, a testament to years of contemplation and reflection. Could it hold the key to unraveling the web of lies surrounding Lady Margaret's untimely death? The priest's eyes wandered towards the bookshelves lining the walls, stacked high with leather-bound tomes. Among them, titles like Inheritance Law and Wills and Estates caught his attention. Surely, Lady Margaret's solicitor had left more than just a contested letter. With renewed determination, he began to sift through the shelves. As he pried open a heavy volume, a folded piece of yellowed parchment slipped free, fluttering to the floor like a fallen leaf. He picked it up, heart quickening, as he recognized the elegant script at the top. It was addressed not to Lady Margaret, but to her brother, Lawrence. With meticulous care, he unfolded it, revealing the words, "To whom it may concern," followed by details that sent a shiver up his spine. It confirmed a will left in place long before Lady Margaret had even begun to contemplate her own future. Perhaps this is the will Lawrence is meant to contest, he murmured to himself, the implications echoing in the quiet study. Careful not to miss any vital clues, he traced the elegant handwriting with a finger, pondering both the contents and the motive behind it. What if the very existence of this document kept a secret from crawling into the light? Just as he tucked the parchment into his coat pocket, there came a knock at the study door. It swung open, revealing Simon, his expression lined with concern. "Father, I thought you'd be here. I wanted to speak with you about Charles Redding. There's something unsettling about him." "Unsettling?" Father Brown arched an eyebrow. "He seems earnest enough, yet can earnestness mask ulterior motives?" "Exactly," Simon replied, a hint of agitation forking his brow. "He was close with Lady Margaret, yes, but isn't there something odd about how he arrived just after the news of her demise? He seemed far too prepared, far too aware." Father Brown's mind flickered like the candle flames in the room. Perhaps it is worth observing his behavior. Intent can be subtle, hiding behind a mask of concern, but often revealing itself in the smallest details. As they engaged in quiet speculation, a sudden crash of thunder shook the walls of the vicarage, the wind howling like a spirit unleashed from its confines. Father Brown closed his eyes momentarily, reflexively appreciating the chaotic symphony outside that intensified their own internal discussions. "Let us not dismiss anything," he said finally, heading toward the study's large window. "Be watchful of what may arise in the shadows." Outside, the now ferocious rain pelted the ground, turning the cobbled paths into little rivers as figures began to scatter toward the manor in frantic disarray. Father Brown knew that secrets would only grow more malignant with time. We must search the estate. There's no telling what truths lie hidden in its depths, he declared. Accompanied by Simon, they made their way to Castle Thorn, the heavy wooden doors creaking ominously as they pushed past into the dimly lit corridor. Velvet drapes absorbed the muted light filtering through the tall, narrow windows, a lush fabric hiding years of whispers and shadows. As they walked, the echo of their footsteps bounced off the stone walls, heightening the oppressive atmosphere. Once inside, the vastness of the manor was daunting. Each chamber felt like a mausoleum, filled with the echoes of the past. We should, beneath the floors, perhaps or behind the portraits, Simon interjected, enthusiasm shifting into determination as he gestured towards a row of framed paintings marking the lineage of Lady Margaret's family. Warily, they approached the wall, peering at the meticulous brushstrokes and the menacing gazes of ancestral figures. Fitting they would look down upon us now, Father Brown commented dryly, thinking of the accusations that could easily be hurled from such hallowed ground. With a sigh, Simon reached to the edge of the frame, pushing it aside. With a slight creak, the shifting portrait revealed a compartment carved into the wall. Lifting its secret door revealed a safe, well protected, yet its presence was alluring. If Lady Margaret's intentions lie within, we may find more than we bargained for, he whispered as Father Brown stepped closer. Drawing upon his keen observational skills, Father Brown scanned the intricate numbers etched onto the safe's lock. Could it be a combination tied to her family's history? A date, perhaps? A glimmer caught Father Brown's eye, and he noticed a faint scratch on the wooden frame beneath the safe. Not just a date, he muttered under his breath, rapidly constructing connections. Perhaps it's the day of Margaret's birth, or her brother's. The very foundation of family ties. Your brother's death was the end of her family, perhaps. As they contemplated the revelation, another sound punctuated the air, a quickened rap on the heavy door of the manor. They turned sharply, Simon's eyebrows knitting together in uncertainty. The figure of Charles Redding appeared at the threshold, his clothes drenched, his hair plastered to his forehead. "Father Simon," he breathed, breathless and agitated, "you must help me. I have uncovered darkness. Someone is after me." The unexpected urgency in his voice sent a chill down Father Brown's spine, a sudden realization coiling inside him like a serpent. "What have you discovered, Mr. Redding?" His gaze fierce, Redding stepped further inside, a storm of fear mirrored in the depths of his eyes. "The will, there's something in it that may not only change the course of the inheritance, but could bring to light what you don't know about Lady Margaret." Just as Redding's words hung heavy in the air, a premonition pulsating with dreadful intensity, across the room, they heard a loud click echoing from the wall behind them. The safe door swung ajar, leaving the intimation of peril dangling before them. "What if it is someone else?" Simon queried, his voice a mix of trepidation and clear recognition of the stakes. "Then we stand on the threshold of danger," Father Brown uttered, eyes narrowing toward the safe. "What truth will remain, and will it wake the ghosts that dwell within Castle Thorn? With the secrets waiting to unveil within those walls, growing murderous in presence, Father Brown braced himself against the unknown. What lay within the safe could turn the tide of despair and deception lurking in the rain-slicked night, transforming the tangled web of loyalty into a deadly battleground. The only certainty was that the time for answers had come. Before the will the legacy, and even his own life unraveled. Chapter 5. A Dangerous Affection. The storm beat relentlessly against the castle's worn stone walls, as if the heavens themselves were rebuking the tumultuous secrets brewing within. The echoes of thunder reverberated through the cavernous corridors of Castle Thorn, a sinister symphony that set the stage for the night's grim revelations. Father Brown's heart thudded in synchrony with the storm, sensing the weight of anticipation thickening the air around him. Just as he resolved to delve deeper into the murky depths of Lady Margaret's affections, a sharp knock sounded on the door, fracturing his thoughts like a bolt of lightning. "Enter," he called, the urgency of the moment squeezing his voice. The door creaked open, revealing Lawrence, his expression fraught with anxiety. The revelation of the evening, the potential existence of a hidden will, swirled in the air, mingling with the scent of damp wood and old regrets. "Father," Lawrence began, taking unsteady steps inside, "I overheard something about Lady Margaret and Charles Redding." The mention of the artist caused Father Brown's brow to furrow. "What exactly did you hear?" Lawrence shifted his weight, casting glances toward the stormy shadows beyond. "Margaret, she was meeting him. Secretly. Some said it was more than mere acquaintance. I cannot fathom why, but I feel it's something important." His voice dropped to a whisper as dread curled around the edges of his words. Father Brown studied him closely, understanding. From the tremor of his lips, that jealousy simmered beneath the surface of his words. "And this troubled you? What if their affections were genuine, or perhaps, as you fear, plagued by something darker?" Yet Lawrence's brows remained knitted, the inner turmoil refusing to grant him peace. "I wanted to believe it was innocent, but now I fear what it could mean for the inheritance. What if someone felt robbed of their future? What if jealousy became a deadly poison?" The young man's revelations were indeed troubling, feeding into Father Brown's growing suspicion that motivations ran dangerously deep within the folds of familial love and ambition. "Tell me more about this relationship," he pressed. "Was it known to others?" "We mostly caught glimpses," Lawrence confessed, glancing back toward the door before lowering his voice. "Whispers of a forbidden love, painted through secret hours in the garden, or their meetings at the old boathouse by the lake. But ever since Margaret's passing, it feels like a wildfire burning just beneath the surface, consuming anyone caught within its grasp." As Lawrence spoke, the shadows around Father Brown seemed to pulse with unsaid truths, the pieces of a complex puzzle converging within him. The artist, Redding, grew increasingly suspicious, and he could not dismiss the timing of his arrival at Castle Thorn. What if hidden affection bore the weight of rage, to love and possess, then to lose? Might it lead one to commit the darkest of acts? Before Lawrence could respond, another thunderclap shook the hall as though urging urgency upon them. In that moment, a collection of footsteps echoed down the corridor and into the room. Simon appeared, his expression indicating distress. "Father, you shan't believe it," he exclaimed, breathless, the rain-soaked threads of his coat darkening from the tempest outside. "The townsfolk, they've noticed something unusual about Redding. He had spoken of an event last week, an argument with Lady Margaret that was described as quite heated. Some say it was jealousy, others believe it may have involved threats." The words landed with the weight of a falling stone, stirring the fragile atmosphere anew. Father Brown recalled Redding's frantic appearance just moments before, the artistry of a man so often guided by emotion, no longer cloaked in innocence. But why would Redding possess such intensity? Father Brown murmured thoughtfully, connecting the dots. If it was passion that beckoned him to Castle Thorn, could it not twist into a desire to smother love's servitude? Perhaps to illuminate some twisted iteration of possession that crossed a sinister line, a stolen love revealing itself in grotesque fashion? Are you suggesting he could have killed her? Simon's voice rose with incredulity, while Lawrence shrugged, his face taut. Passion can become a tempest itself. It can both illuminate and consume, Father Brown replied, peering through the window at the storm. The rain streaked against the glass, a visual echo of the chaotic emotions swirling around them. We must confront this notion with clarity. What drove him to such a passionate alliance? With urgency, the three men devised a plan to speak with Charles Redding immediately. They navigated the twisted corridors of the castle, each echoing step amplified by the relentless storm that continued to rage outside. When they found Redding, he was seated at the edge of the fireplace in a small sitting room, his gaze far away as he stared into the flames, appearing lost in a world of memories. His damp clothing clung to his skin like the weight of the gathering storm. The moment he noticed the priest and his companions, a veil of tension settled in the air. "Father Brown," he said, expression pinching as if remembering the weight of his sorrow. "What brings you here at such a tumultuous hour?" "Charles," Father Brown spoke gently, yet firmly, "we need to discuss your relationship with Lady Margaret. It is vital we understand the nature of it." Redding's brow knitted, tension palpable. "I loved her." The conviction in his voice drew them closer, as he tore his glare from the flames, locking eyes with them. "But you must know it was not something I sought. It grew like weeds in a neglected garden." His voice faltered, revealing the desperation in his soul. "We were to find a way, until the very end." "Until what end?" Lawrence pressed, his earlier doubts dismissed in an eagerness that festered beneath his resolve. "Did you not harbor jealousy? Was it not you who argued, 'You must disclose the truth if you expect our help'?" "Jealousy?" Redding laughed bitterly, a bitter bark against the backdrop of the crackling fire. "No, it was the very thing that burdened my heart. It was my silent love for her, filled with despair as I remained in the shadows." The tension in the room thickened, the prospect of passion, pushing the boundaries of murder, looming larger. Father Brown felt urgency burn through him as thunderclaps beyond rattled the windows. "But what of the threats? The townsfolk say you were seen in a heated argument with her." Redding's features flushed, the emotions flaring brighter. "I cannot help what others think. Lady Margaret was devoted to something that had become her undoing, while I remained powerless to persuade her otherwise. It drove me into agony. Perhaps I said too much." With each word, Father Brown's mind catalogued the pieces of a growing puzzle, colliding fears and desires, forming a lethal cocktail. "Tell us about the argument, Charles. What sparked it? We stand on a precipice. If there indeed was a hidden element, we cannot dismiss its potential hazard." He pushed her away to keep interests concealed. She was in love with someone else, and it broke her. Redding's voice tightened, desperation overtaking his sanity. A loud crash echoed through the hallway just beyond, unmistakably the sound of a falling painting, which sent all four men rushing from the room, hearts in their throats. Amid the shadows, the Glistening stormlight barely illuminated the truth that lingered, woven into the very fabric of Castle Thorn. And with each step, they knew they were heading toward answers, perhaps more perilous than they anticipated. Would the truth be unveiled before darkness seized hold? Or would love's suffocating grip seal Lady Margaret's fate forever? As they reached the main corridor, a chilling revelation awaited them, a shattering discovery that would change everything. Within the opulence of an ancestral portrait, a bloodied envelope bore Lady Margaret's initials. A note lingered beneath the canvas, laden with secrets that threatened to unravel them all. Father Brown felt a shiver run through him as he picked up the piece of parchment, but before he could read its contents, a figure appeared at the far end of the hall. The storm outside raged on, yet the brewing domestic turmoil inside Castle Thorn promised an even fiercer storm, one laced with jealousy, love, and haunting threats. "Your time grows short, Father," Redding shouted, eyes wild with fear, as the figure drew closer. Someone is coming for us." Father Brown stared at the envelope, anxiety coiling around his gut, aware that the storm's fury mirrored the darkened truths seeking to surface. What twisted revelation awaited them on that rain-soaked evening? Chapter 6. The Missing Portrait. The storm outside continued to thrum against Castle Thorn with renewed fury, thunder crackling like a whip, a harbinger of chaos unsettlingly felt within its ancient walls. It was amid this tempest that Father Brown stood, heart racing, as he gazed at the stark emptiness where Lady Margaret's portrait had once graced the stone walls. Only now, unwelcome vacancy stared back at him. The painting, the very embodiment of her presence, had vanished, bequeathing nothing but an unsettling silence and swirling rumors of intent, each suggestion more sinister than the last. "Where is it?" Lawrence breathed, breaking the stillness that enveloped the room. His eyes darted as if the void might yield an answer. How could anyone dare to take it? Father Brown shook his head, resisting the wave of dread threatening to overwhelm him. "This is no mere theft, Lawrence. The absence of that portrait invites questions. Questions about Lady Margaret's past, about her loves, and perhaps about the very nature of her death." "A painting can't yield secrets," Simon countered, concern etching deeper lines upon his youthful face. "Can it?" Father Brown remained silent, the firelight casting flickering shadows over his features as he contemplated the many tales a simple piece of art could convey. The remains of that bloodied envelope from the night before seemed to pulsate in his mind, connecting threads between love and loss, desperation and desire. As the trio moved closer to examine the empty frame, the flickering flames illuminated a patch of the wall where the portrait had hung. Only traces of dust revealed its absence. The space was almost a canvas in itself, ready to unveil a different kind of artwork. Once again, that unsettling sweetness of anxiety gripped Father Brown's heart as he scrutinized the edges of the frame. "Look," he urged, pointing toward the slightly discolored wood. "Whatever was behind that portrait isn't visible to the casual eye." Lawrence stepped forward, his voice half a whisper. "What do you mean? Do you think something lies hidden there?" Father Brown leaned closer, detecting a faint outline etched around the corners of the frame, perhaps a clue to something once concealed. If there was an absence of paint here, then perhaps there is a message waiting to be uncovered, a hidden truth masked by the artistry of a life now extinguished. In that moment, a resounding clap of thunder shook the very foundation of Castle Thorn, and a dodge of unease rippled through them. Redding, Simon said suddenly, recalling their encounter with the artist. He mentioned something about love, concealed in shadows. Could there be a connection? Indeed, Father Brown said, decorative curiosity igniting his mind. Charles Redding harbored more than mere affection for Lady Margaret. It could be that their relationship, intertwined with the art she inspired, holds the key to understanding someone's motives. We ought to return to him, to question him further. Just then, a faint knock reverberated through the corridor, jolting their thoughts. The sound was soft, yet urgent, an appeal wrapped in trepidation. As the door creaked open, a pale figure emerged, a woman whose presence seemed as fragile as winter's breath. It was Eliza, a maid who had worked in Castlethorne for longer than anyone could remember, her eyes wide with distress. "Father Brown, you must help," she pleaded, trembling as the rain pelted behind her, creating an arresting backdrop of tumult. "There are whispers among the servants. They say Redding may have been behind the painting's disappearance. Voices suggest he was seen lurking near the gallery just before the storm struck." Father Brown's instincts tightened. Eliza's fears were not unfounded. He'd sensed lingering frustration in Redding, a possessive nature artistically veiled beneath charm. "Have you proof of this?" "The housekeeper. She caught him," Eliza gasped. Just outside, when the lightning flashed, he turned, and the way he looked, full of intent. "I fear for what he may do." Father Brown nodded gravely. Every piece of information mattered in navigating the twisted maze of affections and motives. "Thank you, Eliza. You have done well to speak so swiftly," he said, feeling the weight of urgency settle upon him. They had to uncover the truth behind Redding's emotions before jealousy ignited into something much more threatening. The four of them made their way toward Redding, stepping carefully through the labyrinthine halls of the castle, which now felt like treacherous veins pulsing with dark intentions. Each echo of their footsteps was swallowed by the unsettling silence surrounding them. Upon arriving at the artist's quarters, they were met with an eerie tranquility, seemingly untouched by the storm outside. The door was ajar, inviting yet foreboding. Father Brown pushed it open, revealing a dimly lit space adorned with canvases of varying size, all attesting to Redding's turmoil and genius. "Charles," he called, his voice steadying in defiance of dread. Redding appeared from behind a canvas, brush in hand, his eyes alight with a feverish energy. "Father Brown," he sighed, a facade of calm stretching across his features, barely masking a tempest beneath. "I was merely reflecting." "Reflecting on what?" Father Brown pressed, his voice taking on an edge of authority. "Did you take Lady Margaret's portrait?" Redding's brows knitted, the brush faltering in mid-air. "Why would you think such a thing? That portrait was my tribute, my love." "Yet it has vanished," Father Brown emphasized. "What more could you reveal of your love?" Redding's shoulders tensed, shadows gathering in his gaze. "There's more, a lot more. It wasn't just love that blossomed, it was rooted in desperation. The hidden has eyes even without the portrait. It could ignite a fire thought extinguished." Before a reply could leave Father Brown's lips, the sound of the troublesome, echoing crash of wood rang through the air once more, unnerving their dialogue. Father Brown's heart leaped, suddenly aware that they weren't the only ones navigating these shadows. A discovery loomed before them, echoing louder than the storm outside, entwining everything they thought they knew. What secrets had Redding concealed behind his canvas, and within the walls he painted? Was everything leading to some artistic deception, forged by love, jealousy, or hatred? When the tempest howled outside once more, the threat of exposure lingered, tight as the paint drying on its surface, an unsolved riddle resting just beneath the surface, obscured in shadow. Something awaited their uncovering, revealing yet another portrait, one with darker strokes, hidden in corners where passions intertwined. Father Brown felt his pulse quicken. One final revelation held the key. If they could decipher Redding's hidden confessions, what could they unveil about Lady Margaret's heart that might have slipped away within the tempest? As the tension pulsed, fueled by secrets both beautiful and malevolent, he knew they were on the cusp of something momentous, a truth as delicate as the finest art. Chapter 7. A shadow at matin's dawn broke over the village of Manshill, but the sun's rays struggled to penetrate the thick blanket of fog that clung desperately to the churchyard. The ancient stone of St. Oswald's peered through the murk, casting elongated shadows on the wet ground. It was in this gloom that Father Brown found himself, stepping from the wooden doors of the church, weary yet drawn into the unsettling quiet that had settled over the peaceful landscape. As he paused at the edge of the churchyard, the air grew thick with tension, almost electric, and then, from the corner of his eye, he saw it, a fleeting silhouette darting between the tombstones. For a moment, it seemed almost ethereal, like a wisp of smoke slipping through the veils of morning mist. Father Brown's heart raced, prompting him to take a cautious step forward, his instincts sharpened by the recent turmoil surrounding Lady Margaret's mysterious death. "Who's there?" he called, his voice slicing through the stillness with authority. "Show yourself!" The shadow froze, and then, as if stung by an invisible force, began to dissolve into the landscape, disappearing into the fog. A low rumble of distant thunder echoed from the hills, a warning of further storms yet to come. Father Brown moved swiftly, determination fueling his steps as he navigated the damp earth, weaving through the grave markers etched with the names of departed souls, each holding secrets of their own. Suddenly he paused, his eyes drawn to a well-worn tombstone that jutted from the ground like a sentinel keeping watch. An inscription caught his attention, one that resonated in the depths of his memory, an old local legend, steeped in betrayal and anguish surrounding the Monroe family. "Here lies Elizabeth Monroe, beloved daughter, lost to shadows." Father Brown knelt, brushing away the accumulation of damp leaves to reveal the delicate carvings beneath. He recalled the stories whispered amongst villagers about Elizabeth, her tragic demise blamed on a heart torn asunder. Betrayal, love, and loss, themes interwoven with Lady Margaret's own story. Could there be a connection? He pondered under his breath. And as he spoke, a faint recollection of something darker tugged at the edges of his mind. Behind him, the soft crunch of shoes against gravel warned him of an approach. He turned to find Lawrence, still bleary-eyed from the remnants of sleep, and Simon, who had a hesitant expression upon his youthful face. "Father, you look troubled," Lawrence said, glancing at the tombstone. "What draws you here at dawn?" Father Brown rose, dusting off his knees. "I believe we may stand at the threshold of something profound. Shadows from the past often weave their way into our present. There's a murmur of a figure I spotted in these grounds, a legend of a betrayal that reaches back generations." "Betrayal?" Simon echoed, his voice barely above a whisper. Wasn't Lady Margaret herself at the centre of such an affair? Precisely. Father Brown's gaze drifted back to the church's weathered stone. As the village recalls, Elizabeth Munro vanished, rumoured to have been betrayed by the very man she loved, a connection that may mirror our current cloud of suspicion. What if her spirit haunts these grounds, seeking retribution for past wrongs? Lawrence wondered aloud, skepticism flickering in his eyes. Or perhaps protection, Father Brown mused. We must learn more. The truth often lies entwined with folklore. He could sense a thrill of danger weaving through their conversation, an unshakable feeling that whichever figure had eluded him would reveal more than just its fleeting presence. It would uncover a deeper truth intertwined with the Munro family's legacy, potentially unmasking the true murderer within the charming yet deceptive walls of Castle Thorn. Let's not linger in these grave markers. It seems morose, Simon suggested, glancing uneasily at the tombstones. What's our next step, Father? As he pondered the question, Father Brown felt the first droplets of rain fall upon his head, delicate yet foreboding, as they enhanced the already cool air. The church's ancient bells chimed, marking the hour, a melodic summons toward a revelation cloaked in shadows. We must revisit those who knew Elizabeth Munro well, her family, the sorrowful chorus of this village. Their truths may endure as whispers etched into the very stones of this place. The trio turned back toward the path leading into the village, the air thickening with anticipation. Father Brown led them through narrow streets, flanked by aged cottages, their chimneys stubbornly releasing wisps of smoke into the morning. Secrets lay between those bricks, tucked away by generations lined with sorrow and loss. At the edge of the village, they approached the modest but well-kept Munro home, its facade showing wear, but imbued with the spirit of enduring resilience. They were greeted by Miriam Munro, the elder sister of Elizabeth, and a woman whose eyes bore the weight of memories steeped in tragedy. Father Brown, she said, her voice trembling, what brings you here today? Good morning, Mrs. Munro, he replied gently, sensing a chasm of unresolved grief within her. We seek the truth surrounding Elizabeth's story. A shadow has emerged in the churchyard, a memory from the past that may disclose the motives behind the turmoil we now witness. Miriam's gaze hardened, her face taut with unresolved emotion. My sister's memory is not one to be trifled with, Father. We have endured enough gossip and suspicion over the years. Yet might her truth offer clarity in the present? Father Brown urged, observing how she flinched, caught between hers and Elizabeth's anguish. Was there any man whom she loved fiercely? A film flickered across Miriam's eyes, reflecting years of her own sorrow, but it was the flickering ember of anger that truly captured Father Brown's attention. There was someone, chosen, yes, but he too betrayed her in the end, she confessed, shakily, a man of art, reciting promises while painting vibrant pictures of their future. Redding, Simon interjected, his youth showing in the surprised gasp. Miriam nodded, eyes glistening with memories that churned emotions. His love was beautiful, but full of deception. My sister's light went dim when she discovered the truth. Art cannot hold truth the way a heart can. Sensing the connection, Father Brown felt a pulse thrumming beneath the surface of the conversation, as if he stood on the precipice of revelation. Where might I find this artist to understand fully the vision he had of your sister? In that moment, a flash of recognition crossed Miriam's face, profound and turbulent. Yet suppose the artist wanders here still, shrouded in shadows and deceit. If ghosts breathe within his canvas, might they have aligned with the living? Before she could elaborate, a sudden commotion at the gate drew their attention. A figure came rushing toward them, soaked by the rain, revealing wide eyes, full of fear. It was Eliza, panic-stricken and breathless. "Father, you must come quickly." Redding. He was seen near the churchyard just before dawn. The weight of her words fell like lead. Father Brown's mind raced, making connections as he glanced at Miriam. The darkness surrounding both Lady Margaret and Elizabeth began to meld, entwined with jealousy, pain, and artistic madness. "Mais ça ne s'arrête pas là," Miriam whispered, the dread tightening among the group. "There's another, the brother, a man deeply intertwined. They kept Elizabeth's secrets close." Father Brown's heart quickened. "We must find Redding hastily," he remarked, nudging the urgency within them all. The truths of past betrayals and present deceptions formed a web that threatened to engulf them. Would this web entangle the next victim, or ultimately unravel the mystery? The storm that brewed, both outside and within, hinted at a fierce confrontation, a revelation that might strike more than just fear into the hearts of those who wandered through shadows. With the air thickening with ominous portent, Father Brown and the group set forth, eager to unearth the layers of history behind Elizabeth Monroe's tale. As dawn's light struggled against darkened skies, pointing towards something troublingly real, they were pulling the threads of tragedy's tapestry, unremitting in the descent toward the truth hidden beneath the guise of art and betrayal. Chapter 8. The Confession Unraveled. The rain fell in relentless sheets, each drop splattering against the cobblestones of Manshill with the weight of the secrets it masked. Father Brown stood outside the Monroe home, feeling the chill wrap around him like a shroud as he exchanged worried glances with Miriam and the youth Simon, who both peered into the shrouded village. The tension that enveloped them was palpable, born from the many layers of grief and tension that had been unearthed. Miriam's voice trembled nervously, yet determination flickered in her doe-like eyes. "Father Brown," she began, taking a shaky breath, "we must find Redding. My sister's spirit cannot rest while those he betrayed walk freely." Her words, heavy with anguish, echoed through the misty air, igniting a fire within Father Brown that had been absent in his earlier investigations. "There may be truth hidden in sorrow," he replied, glancing down the winding path toward the churchyard. "It would be prudent to seek out those who might have witnessed Redding's dealings with Elizabeth." As they prepared to traverse the village, a figure burst through, the rain silhouetted against the ferocious backdrop of the clouded sky. It was Eliza, hair plastered to her brow, the fear etched in her delicate features, chillier than the rainfall. "Father, I found him. Redding," she gasped, nearly collapsing from the tension that powered her frenzied arrival. "Where?" Father Brown's heart quickened. The colorful paintings of Redding's past, once admired, now turned enigmatic in the shadows of despair. "By the chapel," she wheezed. He's confessing." "Confessing?" Miriam murmured, brow furrowing in confusion, yet an intensity lit her gaze. "There's more than just art. What has he to confess?" Father Brown felt a rush of urgency. "Let us hasten. A confession may unravel the ties binding us to the tragedy that struck your family." They moved quickly, the mud sucking at their hem and coats as they made their way through the village outskirts where the chapel stood, its weather-worn stones glistening with rain. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of aged wood and candle wax, a sanctum that felt both inviting and foreboding. A flickering flame cast shadows that danced across the walls as they entered the chapel. And there he was, Redding, slumped against the cold stone walls, the remnants of a once vibrant artist, now reduced to a man etched with despair. His eyes, glinting like wet stones, caught the group as they tread forward cautiously. "Go away!" he howled, a rawness to his voice that nearly shattered the stillness. "I've confessed enough to the Lord, but no one can save me from the fires of my own treachery." "What have you done, Redding?" Father Brown pressed softly, stepping closer. "There's no solace in hiding beneath the weight of your guilt. Speak the truth. It's the only way to free yourself." "Is there truth left in anything I've done?" Redding growled, pushing himself upright, his wild hair framing the chaos brewing in his heart. "Elizabeth painted with light, but I painted with shadows. I betrayed her, yes, but in a way that twisted through my own fears." His breath came in labored gasps, each word an anguished remembrance. "I loved her too fiercely, Father. Yet after I painted her portrait, I painted another, one that was never meant for the light of day." Father Brown's mind raced. "Another portrait? You must tell us what it depicts." Redding's features contorted with pain, then sorrow. "A portrait of my brother James, who adored her as well. Elizabeth opened her heart to me, only to find my brother lingering in the shadows. His love seeped into our world like poison, and in her gaze I saw despair reflected back at me." Miriam stepped forward, her voice quavering but fierce. "You mean to say you both loved Elizabeth? Did you ever tell her of his feelings?" "No," Redding spit out, eyes aflame. "But the moment she knew, she turned away. I was not her only muse." His voice cracked, revealing the jagged edge of his own guilt. "In the end, she chose neither of us. Faith consumed her, and darkness consumed me." "What? Darkness?" Father Brown steeled himself. "Do you think her spirit still wanders? What harm lies in your past that would make her restless?" Redding's shoulders shook, clarity piercing the fog of his insanity. "The night she disappeared, the night she couldn't stand the betrayal anymore, I sought to keep my secrets safe. I hid the paintings of both our hearts. I intended to burn them, but I lost control. Elizabeth confronted me, demanding the truth, and in a moment of rage, He hesitated, breath hitching with the weight of unsaid terror. "I exposed everything." "And what did she do?" Father Brown pressed, recognizing the shift within Redding's eyes from remorse to fear. She ran into the night. The storm raged, and I suggested she go. I thought it would free us both. But now I fear." Redding crumpled to the floor, burying his face in his hands. "I fear my heart was the cause of her undoing." Father Brown's mind whirled. "Is that when the secrets of the past collided with your present? When you sealed her fate?" Miriam gasped, as if struck, piecing the knowledge together. "You believed you could erase Elizabeth's light by burning the truth, but the flames have not quenched her spirit. They have ignited our pain." Suddenly, the weight of revelation pressed harshly upon the group. Father Brown's gaze sharpened, now convinced that a deeper betrayal lingered in the layers of their confessions. "Redding, we need to find the other painting, the one you hid. It may hold the last piece of the puzzle," he urged, heart racing against the odds of darkness closing in. "I do not know where it is," Redding cried, panic etched in his features. "Then allow me to seek guidance in your painted truth," Father Brown insisted, his intuition alight with purpose. What other secrets does it bespeak? As thunder rumbled ominously outside, a chilling gust of wind through the chapel sent the candles flickering wildly. Cue a sharp intake of breath, a sound cutting through the tension like a knife. Eliza, who had remained silent and pale, stepped forth, eyes alight with suspicion. The tapestry depicts betrayal. Was it ever just about art? What are you suggesting? Father Brown challenged, his instincts surging to alertness. Eliza's brow furrowed, voice a mix of defiance and clarity. What if Miriam kept all the letters that could unravel it further, or a family secret buried deep within? Redding's eyes widened. I never knew, he spluttered, as the tension within the group thickened into a yawning silence. Father Brown turned toward the others, realizing if the answers were obscured behind memories, buried under layers of the heart, then they were stepping into a truth far grimmer than mere jealousy or art. As thunder crackled over the chapel, Father Brown seized the moment. Eliza is right. We must not only seek the painting, but uncover all truths entangled in this mystery. The letters from your sister and the fabrications the Monroe family chose to keep buried. If we are to unearth these entwined souls, we must delve into both the hearts of a man and the fabric of betrayal. With the air thick with secrets awaiting their unearthing, Father Brown could feel relentless urgency coiling around him. This chapter of the tragedy was far from over. They would confront the shadows and let the confessions unravel, as fate and artistry remained hostage to past betrayals. Outside, the rain beat a frenetic rhythm as his mind raced with the implications of what lay ahead, a storm rumbling with secrets yet to be revealed. Chapter 9. The Cross in the Attic. The wind howled through the trees like a chorus of lost souls, and the rain drummed upon the battered rooftops of Marnes Hill with a ferocity that seemed to echo the turmoil within its heart. Father Brown stood in the narrow hallway of the Monroe home, his brow furrowed as the somber tones of a live piano drifted from the parlor, where Miriam played a melancholy composition, each note a reflection of despair for her lost sister. Father, I believe the truth of Elizabeth's fate lies where the past has been tucked away. Eliza's voice trembled, cutting through the tension. She held a frayed candle that lit the murky corners of the dim hall. We must search the attic. It's where my mother kept all the family secrets, the letters, and the keepsakes. Father Brown nodded, sensing the palpable weight that hung in the air. Very well. Let us draw from the shadows of history. He turned, his heart heavy with the knowledge that the threads of fate were tightly knotted and buried beneath layers of grief. The spiral staircase creaked underfoot as they ascended into the attic, dust motes swirling in the flickering candlelight like forgotten memories waiting to resurface. As they reached the attic door, its hinges groaned in protest, revealing a space crammed with time-worn trunks and musty bookshelves. The air was thick, suffocated by dust. Everything felt as though it had been caught in a timeless web. Eliza ventured inside first, pale hands sifting through decaying artifacts, while Father Brown moved cautiously, his eyes darting from one shadowed object to the next. Suddenly, a sparkle caught his attention, a glint of metal amidst the dreariness. "Over here," he beckoned. As Eliza approached, a battered crucifix on a stand drew them both in. Its rustic figure, carved from dark wood, appeared to weep against the elements of time. "What an unusual piece," he murmured, placing his hand upon it. "Such craftsmanship. There may be more than meets the eye." He turned it over gingerly, revealing a hidden compartment that gently sprang open, releasing a faint plumeria scent of old parchment, mingling with dust. As the small door gave way, a thin, leather-bound diary fluttered free, its pages warped from years of neglect. Father Brown reverently grasped it, noting the delicate handwriting etched in ink that had faded with time. This may hold the key to what has transpired, the burdens these walls conceal. The palpable tension in the attic thickened as he flicked through the pages, the words emerging like ghosts from a forgotten past. "Eliza, this diary, do you recognize the handwriting?" Father Brown asked, barely breaking his focus as he scanned it with mounting concern. "It seems to belong to Mother," she whispered, shifting closer to read the scrawled entries. She rarely spoke of her past. If she knew of Elizabeth's struggles, if she ever fathomed Redding's madness, it might be here. "Miriam, come," Father Brown called, motioning for her to join them. As Miriam approached, Eliza read aloud, her voice quivering with emotion. January 16th, 1942. I can no longer ignore the shadows that crept in beneath our roof. There are whispers of Elizabeth's name upon the lips of those who worship artistic talent above virtue. Redding is among them, but his motives are tangled like the roots of a storm-struck tree. The atmosphere shifted, the weight of their shared history settling upon them like a heavy pall. "Whispers. Is there more?" Father Brown urged, keenly aware that every word was a thread leading deeper into the web of deceit. February 12th, 1942. I overheard Miriam speaking of a brother lost to darkness. She believes Redding creates not only art, but pain. Accusations enough to tarnish souls. Eliza continued, her brow furrowed with understanding. "James," Miriam whispered, her eyes wide with a dawning realization. Of course, it was James who harbored the burden of his love for Elizabeth. She moved to peer over Eliza's shoulder, shaking with urgency. This may be the crux of his obsession. It explains their rivalry, his obsession masked as art. "You may be correct," Father Brown replied, piecing together the puzzle within his mind. Redding's madness was not entirely unfounded. These entries provide insights not only into Redding's struggles, but also the siblings' feud that spiraled into tragedy. Eliza continued reading, her voice rising in intensity. March 30th, 1942. There is talk of a crucifix returning to my household, a relic of untold force. I fear it may bring judgment, but also clarity. I dare not converse openly, but the air is thick with fate's coming reckoning. "A crucifix," Father Brown echoed thoughtfully, glancing back at the crucifix in his hands. "Is it possible you inherited more than just material relics, but the burdens of instructing these souls toward the light? Perhaps it symbolized their destructive passions." "Do you suppose," Miriam interjected, her tone cautious, "that this diary could reveal the true extent of Elizabeth's connection to Redding and James, the visceral ramifications of their emotional traumas? Was everything merely for artistry's sake, or were there darker intentions? The truth may lie within these pages." Father Brown pressed on, excitement mingling with urgency. "Let us delve deeper." They turned the pages with purpose, each word unraveling a deeper sense of foreboding. Just then, a lightning strike vibrated through the air, illuminating the attic's corners and causing them all to jump. The silence that followed was profound, a pregnant pause that birthed a realization. Father Brown's eyes widened as he read the last entry inked within the diary's wearied pages. April 15th, 1942. Tonight, the shadows will finally have their reckoning. I will not bear witness to Redding's folly any longer. Let the light pierce this veil of darkness. I can only pray someone finds my words and stops the wretched cycle of depravity before it consumes us all. Eliza's candle flickered ominously as she whispered, "The night she disappeared." The words hung in the air like a noose, tightening with each breath. With trembling hands, Father Brown closed the diary, a sudden resolve igniting within him. "We must go, now," he urged, a sense of awakening coursing through him. "If the family secrets are buried deeper than this attic, we must search beyond these walls, into the heart of the Monroe estate. There are echoes here that lead far beyond betrayal, and we're perilously close to facing a hidden truth." As they hurried down the stairs, gripping the diary like a lifeline, the wind wailing and rain falling heavier than ever, Father Brown felt it, a subtle shift in the atmosphere, a whisper of calamity looming on the horizon. There was one more thread to unravel, one more revelation to uncover before the truth could be fully exposed, a crucifix that could very well redefine the nature of their tangled allegiances and darkened pasts. As they stepped into the storm, the sky cracked one last time, revealing a shard of light, the kind that hinted at truth but warned of devastation, leaving them on the cusp of a discovery that would reverberate through their souls. The depths of the Monroe secrets awaited, and Father Brown was resolved to face the reckoning that lay ahead. Chapter 10. The Final Trap. The rain fell in relentless sheets, drumming against the cobblestones of Marneshill like the anxious heartbeat of a town cloaked in secrets. Inside the village hall, its windows rattled in the gusty wind, echoing the tension that filled the air. Villagers took their places, their murmurs rising and falling, unaware that Father Brown stood at the front, observing with thoughtful intensity. He had meticulously orchestrated this meeting, setting a fragile trap to reveal truths hidden beneath layers of deception, an opportunity for confrontation he hoped would lead to clarity. As the gathering quieted, Father Brown's eyes caught Eliza's in the front row. Her fidgeting hands gripped the frayed hem of her sister's old scarf. Miriam lingered beside her, a portrait of subdued determination. Father Brown took a breath, feeling the weight of their shared history hang in the air like the thick humidity before a storm. "Good evening, everyone," he began softly, his voice cutting deftly through the simmering tension. "Tonight, we convene not merely to discuss art, but the tangled truths surrounding Elizabeth's disappearance and the shadows that loom over us all." The flickering overhead light played tricks on the unsuspecting faces before him, casting them in distorted shades of intrigue. Redding shifted in his seat, beads of sweat dotting his brow as he nervously adjusted his collar. "What do you intend, Father?" he grumbled, his eyes darting between Eliza and Miriam as if anticipating an attack. "Patience, Redding," Father Brown replied, his tone calm yet firm. "All questions shall be addressed. But first, I require your minds to be open. I believe tonight will demand honesty from each of you." He gestured toward a table where various items lay hidden beneath a linen cloth. "First, we will start with what's been uncovered in the attic. A diary of your mother. It contains secrets deeper than any canvas." Gasps rippled through the crowd, and Father Brown saw Redding's eyes darken. "Why should we entertain old ghosts?" he challenged, raising his voice defensively. "What of it? Is this just a ploy to shift blame?" "Not blame, but understanding," Father Brown replied. "There's a crucial moment in shared histories that often goes unnoticed until it rises like the tide. If you wish for absolution, you must first confront your truths. Eliza stood, her voice tremoring with urgency. What if the plaques and portraits in this village hold more than mere artistry? They capture the weight of human experience, betrayals that cling like cobwebs, convoluted yet intertwined. Father Brown nodded, his heart racing as he watched the interplay of emotions shift. Fear, guilt, dread. Precisely that. And sometimes we must unveil the canvas that masks those fibers. He reached for the linen cloth, ready to unearth the hidden artifacts of the Monroe past. A thunderclap echoed outside, sending a ripple of unease through the gathering. Father Brown pulled back the cloth to reveal the battered crucifix, its wood worn and dark, and the leather-bound diary spreading open like a trapped bird. This relic, it has significance beyond decoration. It connects to the very essence of familial strife, he declared, pointing to a faded inscription. It represents the bonds that can both uplift and destroy. I see no relevance, Redding barked, his voice sharpened with agitated intensity. This is merely a theatrics of nostalgia. Miriam narrowed her eyes at him, words spilling forward like newly opened floodgates. You don't wish to see, do you? Your obsession has blinded you, Redding. The competition for Elizabeth's affection wasn't solely artistic, it was deeply emotional. As fear gripped Redding, Father Brown pressed on. It was James, your brother, who embodied the rage of ambition. The rivalry, the fame, it poisoned your family. He gestured toward the diary. In this diary, your mother wrote of James's struggles against darkness, his passion twisting into madness. This despair had a profound reflection. A collision of love and envy becomes art drenched in tragedy. When Redding's gaze fell on the diary, the tremor in his hands became apparent. James shared his demons with no one, he shouted, but the crack in his voice betrayed him. And yet those demons seem to lurk behind your own brushstrokes, Father Brown countered, piercing him with analysis. Was it not jealousy of his talent that birthed your need to claim both art and Elizabeth? And thus, in both possession and rivalry, you may have driven him down a path of despair. Outside, the storm intensified, wind lashing against the hall, and an uproar arose among the villagers. They were captivated, nosy neighbors now keenly invested in the depths of the Monroe family's misfortunes. Eliza's gaze turned fierce as she caught Redding's eye. The shadows of betrayal are too heavy to carry alone. Someone in this room knows far more about James's demise than they've confessed. I suggest, Father Brown interjected sharply, that we peel back the layers of deceit further. Your mother, she wrote of a reckoning. James warned of this very night, of unforeseen consequences should the truth remain buried. Redding's outburst was abrupt and impassioned. You think I fear them? I hold no part of the filth that ties together this family's despair. His eyes darted around the room. I bear neither guilt nor remorse. Then why do you quake? Father Brown challenged. Is it the weight of your conscience or fear of a truth that unravels your carefully woven fabric? You may claim innocence, but I believe there's a crushing secret. Something lost to your obscured paintings. Something that may even tie us back to Elizabeth's final moments. An uneasy silence settled over the group, the tension taut enough to snap. Each suspect's eyes flickered among one another, darting like trapped birds, seeking refuge they could not find. With your mother's words as our guide, Father Brown murmured, his eyes holding the crucifix like a promise. will peel back falsehoods, and the twisted artistry will finally emerge. But before he could continue, the rain ceased, transforming into a deafening stillness. A faint murmur began to rise from the back of the room, a revelation stirring among the shadows, shivering up the spines of all present. "I know where she is," came a sharp voice, breaking the air like thunder, a village elder rising in desperation. "What?" Eliza gasped, while cheeks turned white. As all eyes turned towards the speaker, the glittering truth rested on the tip of their tongues, teetering on the precipice of revelation. The clock ticked in the background, echoing the beckoning of the truth. The night was still young, but as Father Brown felt the aching pull of fate in that crowded hall, he steeled himself for what would come next, knowing they stood at the brink of the final trap, an unveiling that had the power to change everything. Chapter 11. The Reflection of Guilt. In the cold grip of the early morning hours, a dense fog crept over Mans Hill, clinging to the earth like a memory too painful to cast aside. The village lay shrouded in silence, the ghostly mist swirling around lampposts and houses that bore witness to countless secrets whispered in the shadows. It was here that the aftermath of Father Brown's confrontation echoed, resonating in the hearts of the villagers as they woke to a new day, one full of potential revelations. As dawn broke, the remnants of last night's storm clung heavily to the cobbled streets, rain-soaked and slick. Inside the village hall, the air was thick with tension. Father Brown stood at the head of the empty room, replaying the shards of confessions and doubts that had spiraled around him like the fog outside. The echoes of raised voices hung in the rafters, accusations and denials that had landed heavily on the hearts of the assembled villagers. Today, he knew, he must pry open the wounds buried beneath their shared history. The first to arrive was Miriam Monroe, her face pale but resolute. She glided through the half-closed door, her footsteps light as she approached Father Brown, her eyes brimming with unspoken fears. "Father," she said, her voice barely above a whisper, "I feel the weight of last night's revelations. Redding is refusing to accept any responsibility, as if the shadows of our past are merely figments of a deranged imagination." "He is not the only one, Father," Brown replied, his gaze settling on the damp window panes where the fog thickened outside. "We all carry a reflection of guilt. Whether we acknowledge it or not, our actions create ripples. Last night was merely the first tremor. The truth waits to be revealed, and only then will the heavy shroud of regret begin to lift." Just as Father Brown spoke, Redding stepped into the hall, drenched not just from the remnants of the storm, but also from the downpour of emotional turmoil. His face was drawn tight, like a canvas pulled feverishly on its frame. He surveyed his surroundings with a critical eye, suspicion brewing beneath a veneer of bravado. "I had no part in it," he barked, his voice echoing painfully against the aged walls. "The past is the past. Why should we deviate from our lives because of wild speculations?" "Such turbulence speaks volumes, Redding," Father Brown countered, his tone steady but edged with irony. "How does one escape the specter of their own unfulfilled ambition? Isn't it well known that those who refuse to confront their reflection often remain trapped within it?" Eliza entered next, her cheeks flushed with cold embarrassment, and with her came a sense of urgency. "I cannot bear to see my brother in such disarray," she added, her voice firm. "But neither can I let the truth linger in the dark. We stood at the precipice last night. I refuse to allow this family, this village to remain shackled by a legacy of silence. From somewhere in the back of the hall, Orin, a village elder, shuffled toward the gathering. His beard was streaked with silver nodes, mirroring the weight of his years. "We tread perilous waters, Father. The past is akin to molten lead. It burns, but holds profound value when molded wisely." His gaze flitted between the three, intense like a hawk, focused on its prey. "What is it, then, that we must confront to move forward?" "It begins with Redding," Father Brown replied, his voice slicing through the tension. "The echoes of betrayal are tied deeply to you. Look closely, Redding. The words inscribed in your mother's diary are not merely a collection of lamentations. They are a map leading to your own heart, showing the sharp edges of unresolved guilt." Redding's posture stiffened, defiance and terror colliding in his expression. "Guilt? What have I to feel guilty for?" He clenched his hands into fists, his knuckles as pale as his apprehension. "I didn't cause Elizabeth to vanish. Yet the desire to outshine your brother James left scars that festered," Father Brown pressed, not relenting. "Your genius was birthed from his shadow, and in that rivalry you may have painted more than canvases, perhaps even despair." "Stop. Kindly cease your artistic metaphors, Father." Redding's voice rose, filled with frustration. "I am not my brother. He chose to become a recluse, a hermit in his madness. I refuse to allow despair to drown me," Miriam interjected, her tone urgent yet calm. "But did you not push him deeper into despair, with every brushstroke, every stolen glance from Elizabeth? You were not merely competing in art, but in every emotion weaved around our lives. And you knew about his writings, Father. That tempestuous diary may have carried glimpses of his despair you chose to dismiss." Father Brown nodded, seeing the damning truth bloom between them like thorns among flowers. His poetry bore witness to the turmoil within him, the same agony you felt as you fought to stand upon his shoulders. But it remained an anchor, Redding. Your sibling's essence does not merely haunt the canvas, but seeps into your very spirit. Redding's face fell, the bravado slipping away, replaced with a ghost of vulnerability. "What do you expect from me, Father?" The walls of the hall seemed to grow tighter, each breath a reminder of his fragility. "To bring back my brother from the dead. I cannot bear the burden of what happened." "But bearing it is what you must do, Redding," Father Brown said, a gentler edge to his tone. "In doing so, you will unravel the grief stitched into this community. Each of us is woven into the tapestry of pain and hope. Fighting against it leads us to wounds deeper than we can fathom." "But why now?" Redding's voice trembled. "I'd hoped the past would fade, like morning mist. Why bring all this up again?" "Because the morning's light reveals shadows," Father Brown explained, sadness shimmering in his eyes. "Only in the act of revealing can we begin to amend. Look at Eliza. She yearns for absolution. And what of the rest of us, who are tethered to this family's tragedy? Unless we confront the truth, we will remain entangled by these shadows forever." Just as Redding was about to respond, the door swung open, both startling and heralding another presence. The village doctor, Dr. Ashby, now stood, breathless and with urgency written across his features. "I have important news," he panted, and the gravity of his arrival stilled the room. "We've found Elizabeth." A collective gasp filled the hall, filling the air with a palpable charge as the weight of the revelation crashed down upon them. Eliza clasped her hands to her chest while Redding staggered back, disbelief flaring in his eyes. Questions swirled wildly, but Father Brown's mind raced with the implications. Where? He managed to utter, realizing that clarity would embark on a new journey, the kind that flickered with hope, yet bore unavoidable consequences. In the cellar of the old Munro estate, Dr. Ashby replied, urgency thick in his voice. We must go immediately. In that moment, Father Brown's heart sank, knowing the depths of what awaited. The reflection of guilt that they had unearthed would pale in comparison to the truths waiting to be revealed in the depths of the past. As they prepared to leave, the thought loomed large like storm clouds above. What new fabric of betrayal would they uncover in the cellar? And what would it mean for the village that had long lingered in the shadows? The revelation of Elizabeth's location was only a doorway to a truth far darker, and it was a truth they had all been longing to escape. With quickened steps, they surged into the fog, knowing they were on the precipice of an unveiling that would ripple through their very souls and change everything. Chapter 12. The Mercy of the Murderer. The air was thick with a damp chill, as Father Brown took measured steps through the wretched gloom of the Munro estate's cellar. The flickering light of a single lantern cast grotesque shadows across damp stone walls, echoing the horrors which had played out there long before they arrived. As his heart raced with the heavy weight of anticipation, he could feel the turbulent energy of the group behind him, a swirling mass of fear and hope strengthened by the fierce knowledge that they were on the brink of something momentous. "Stay close," he called back, his voice steady, despite the eerie creaks and groans of the old manor, as if it were reluctantly bearing the weight of its secrets. Around him, Eliza's eyes glinted with uncertainty, while Redding moved with a visible tension, his fists clenched tight at his sides. The palpable dread gripping Miriam had etched lines of worry deep on her brow as they navigated through the damp, musty room, the air thick with the stale scent of forgotten memories. Father Brown's keen instincts pulled him forward. Every detail, every piece of the puzzle they'd uncovered thus far swirled in his mind, forming a delicate tapestry that was just waiting to unravel. He recalled the words written in Elizabeth's diary, the chilling confessions contained within those pages, and how they had been a stark reflection of her torment. If they were to understand the events that led to her disappearance, they needed to face the truth, laid bare in this room. "Everything is moving towards a point, Father," Eliza whispered, almost as if sensing the implications of his thoughts. "But who could do such a thing, causing all this pain?" "Someone close," Father Brown murmured, the sound seeming to die in the dank air as they reached the heart of the cellar. There, in a small alcove held by weathered wooden beams, lay the remnants of what had been a homely, if dilapidated, room. Framed sketches of idyllic landscapes surrounding portraits of family members adorned the walls, now muddied with time and neglect. But it was the sight that struck him the hardest. At the center, on the floor, amidst discarded bric-a-brac and trapped darkness, was a canvas, its paint mixed with something far more sinister. Dr. Ashby crouched next to it, his breath hitching in shock as he brushed back cobwebs, revealing a pattern in the paint that looked alarmingly like fingers. "I found it like this," he said, voice hushed. "And in here, it's as if someone wanted to create a memento of a tragedy." Father Brown knelt beside him, inspecting the half-finished strokes. "This isn't an ordinary painting, Doctor. The brushwork is unnaturally frenzied. It reveals a person burdened by heavy emotion. A reflection of loss, perhaps." "Could it be Redding?" Miriam proposed nervously, glancing at him from the corner of her eye. He always sought to channel his pain through art. Or it may reflect someone else's anguish, Father Brown replied, igniting the ambient dread with his words. Each artist carries their muses, but some muses turn into chains that bond too tightly to break. The air became taut as Redding, his head spinning, hardly able to focus. What about Elizabeth? We're here to find her, not scrutinize art like some foolish critic. Where is she? His voice trembled under the weight of guilt, a bitterness slipping through his facade of bravado. We are here to seek the truth, Redding, Father Brown replied quietly, his dark eyes piercing through the veil of panic. You must let this revelation haunt you. To confront it is your only sanctuary. Just then, a faint scraping sound echoed through the cellar, like stone against stone. Everyone tensed, watching as the shadows shifted around them. A soft whimper followed, barely audible but unmistakably human. Eliza's breath caught in her throat as she strained to listen, her heart racing. "Elizabeth," she called out, voice trembling, yet laced with an unmistakable urgency. "Are you down here?" In that instant, the shadows seemed to flicker and retreat, parting to reveal a figure huddled beneath a battered table. It was Elizabeth, or what remained of the girl she once was, streaked with mud and fear, yet still strikingly alive. She lifted her head, eyes wide and glistening with unshed tears. "Eliza! Redding!" she gasped, though her voice trembled softly, a frail echo of the strength she had once held. "Help me!" The world outside faded as the group rushed toward her, but before they reached her side, Father Brown felt a deep pit forming in his stomach. He saw something glimmer beneath the table's edge, a sharp object half embedded in the ground, stark against the darkness. Stooping down, he grasped it and pulled it free. A small, rusted dagger, wreathed in dried stains. "Be cautious," Dr. Ashby exclaimed, looming forward, worry casting a shadow across his brows. It could have been planted to frame someone, or worse. "No," Father Brown shook his head, his eyes narrowing in realization. This was never meant to frame anyone. He turned sharp gaze to Elizabeth, who averted her eyes, guilt flickering across her face. "This belongs to you." "What do you mean?" she echoed, her voice tremulous, as her eyes darted to Redding, then back to the dagger. Father Brown held up the blade, its weight heavy with implication. "In the midst of passion and despair, there lies a secret, a motive entwined with love and sacrifice. It is a reflection of more than mere malice. It stems from a tumultuous heart driven to the edge." As silence engulfed them, he turned to face the remains of the room as if the very walls held the answers they sought. "But I must ask, it was not just the love for James, was it, Redding? You had deeper reasons to harbor resentment toward her." Redding jolted at the accusation, eyes narrowing at Father Brown. "I never—" "Make no mistake, Redding. I see the threads entwined." He stepped closer to Elizabeth, the pieces of the puzzle coalescing in a shocking tableau of guilt and despair. "You loved her, but the love was entangled with bitterness as it festered in the depths of familial conflict, and you were willing to protect her, to save her from the despair your brother James could invoke." "No, you don't understand." Elizabeth's voice was a tremor of desperation, and Father Brown could see it now, the flicker behind her eyes that tore through, illusion after illusion. "It was, I wanted to save both of you, to keep you from suffering, from losing him as I did." The revelation hung heavy in the air, a thundering silence echoing through the damp room, twisting their reality into a new realm marred by tragedy. Father Brown could feel the weight of mercy, surpassing any fleeting notions of justice. What you did, dear girl, it may have been born from love, but love can twist as easily as it can heal. It remains to be seen whether your mercy could truly save anyone. As he stepped back, the implications unfurling like a glistening web, the tension in the room turned electric, swirling unpredictably around them. With swirling doubts and hidden motives waiting to be uncovered, the darkness transformed into a blinding cacophony of emotions. The mercy of the murderer, it seemed, was only the beginning. And just as the air shifted with unspoken despair, Father Brown felt the call of fate echo anew. The truth lay not in a simple confession, but in the complexities etched within the heart of a family torn apart. And with it, the harrowing realization struck him with a resolve. Who had really been the true murderer all along? The next chapter beckoned, brighter than dawn, demanding its place in their story before it faded away into obscurity.